Welcome back to Packs and Picks, and welcome to a new series on the channel. In the year of Sorcery Gothic's release, I'm participating in a sealed escalation league for Gothic. So this is the first episode of many where I'll be talking about my deck, the cards that I've added to the pool, the cards that I've removed or added to the deck, and just overall my experience in the league as my deck grows over the months of this year. So this is the first episode, so let's dive right in. I'll set these packs aside. We're going to get into these at the end of the video, so stick around for that. The first thing I want to talk about are the parameters of the league. So the rules we decided on were we're going to start with a pre-constructed deck, and then every month we'll open up 3 packs. We'll add those cards to our pool, and from the cards in our pool, we can use those to modify our deck as we see fit. So for our first session, we all start with a pre-con and 3 packs. So today I'll talk about the cards that I cut from the standard pre-con and then stuff that I added. Our original parameters were to bring our pre-constructed decks up to 40 cards in the spellbook and 20 sites. So we'll be adding a few more cards to the overall deck. So first off, the things that I cut. One of the first cards I cut was Panpipes of Nam. So this is a powerful effect, but I'm always wary of these symmetrical effects. I'm worried that, yes, I'll be able to get some impact on my side, especially with all the skeletons running around in the Necromancer precon, but this is also going to apply for my opponent as well. So I did put this in the sideboard to start out the league. It might see its way back in as the months progress, but for now, Panpipes is going to stay in the sideboard. And then another card I cut was Corpse Catapult. So in part because this is expensive, but it also requires a lot of bodies in order to work. So tapping a bearer and another ally, and then also having a dead minion in your graveyard that you want to fling out and do some damage with. So it just felt like a lot of overhead to make the Corpse Catapult work. Like Panpipes, this might see its way back in the deck later on in the league if I have a lot of ways to generate more skeletons than just what's in the base Necromancer build. Another card that I cut was Dreadwing. Dreadwing, medium expensive effect, but there wasn't enough incidental card draw in the base pre-constructed Necromancer build for me to feel like the downside of Dreadwing's Genesis ability of having to discard a card I could get around with. So I'll be looking out for maybe effects that allow me to just draw a few more extra cards than what's in the base Necromancer build, so that if I do want to put Dreadwing in, I feel like I'm working around that downside a little bit. And then a couple other cards that I cut, one Kamacine Mummy, one Novice Necromancer. And my goal really with the very first 3 packs of this Escalation League was just to try to make the deck a little bit more consistent or feel a little bit more consistent. So these are 2 cards that I cut and in favor of a couple new cards that you'll see in a moment, just to try to make the deck a little bit more consistent in that first outing. So those are my cuts. What are the cards that I added? So the first card that I added was another copy of Witching Hour. So Witching Hour is super good, at least in the games that I've played so far. So it gives our evil spellcaster and spirit allies airborne and +1 power. We've got a lot of evil in our skeletons running around, so giving them +1 power, also giving them airborne, is very cool. And this is also one of the things that I used to justify cutting Panpipes. Now it's not the same effect. Obviously, Panpipes gives your units much more power, but the Witching Hour is one-sided effect. It's just going to be my units. So it does get around that downside of Panpipes that I was worried about. So this was one of the things that helped me justify cutting Panpipes, is that I had kind of a mini effect of Panpipes in my additions already. Another card that I added, not that impressive, but Snallygaster. There's a couple of Snallygasters already in the pre-constructed deck, so this just helps us get to that consistency goal. Same with Detonate, just another good removal spell because we do have those skeletons that we can frequently blow up and do some damage, so this was just helping towards that consistency goal. Pile of Skulls. This is one that I opened up in my packs, and one of the reasons why I did want to cut some of those higher costed cards in like the Catapult. So Pile of Skulls, once in your turn you can banish a card from your cemetery to summon a skeleton token here. So I felt like this was going to be a little more achievable for, or at least early on in the Escalation League. We're going to have units die, but that's all that's required to make this card work, and you're going to turn those dead minions into skeletons. So Pile of Skulls takes the place of Catapult. in this early version of my Necromancer build. Another card that I added was Desecrate. So an evil ally strikes its site, then may transform into a desecrated ground from your collection. So I put this card in the deck because it acts as another burn spell or attack spell. It also allows our one evil ally to basically get in 2 attacks on a turn. You can attack its site and then you can still tap and move. So I like that action compression that it allows. But I don't have a desecrated ground in my collection. I didn't open one in any of my packs. So that will be one thing that I'm looking for in the packs that I open in future months as the league goes on, to see if I can get that desecrated ground to add to my sites. So that's Desecrate. Grief Larva, a 1/1 burrowing at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to this site. I've played with and against this card. It's just so annoying. It's going to be responsible for 3, 4, 5 points of damage over the course of the game. And it's just, I really enjoy this card right now. So Grief Larva going in the deck. Ghostfire, we'll probably talk about this as we talk more about other cards in the pool and some of the gameplay that I encountered. But dealing 1 damage and then also dealing another damage with the same card in separate instances does really well against all the ward tokens in Gothic. So Ghostfire seems like it's overperforming, at least in the early days of the league. Really like Ghostfire. Angry Mob, this is one that it was a fun addition. So Genesis, kill target adjacent, unique, or elite minion. Because we're playing sealed, and ultimately a big sealed pool, people are going to open up their elites and their uniques, and they're going to want to play them in their deck because that's going to be kind of the linchpin of being able to win games. So Angry Mob is a great answer in sealed for those one-off uniques and elites that people, I don't want to say feel pressured to play, but like they're going to be the most powerful thing in their pool that they're going to want to play because they don't really have any other option like maybe you do with Constructed. So I like Angry Mob for that reason. And then Raise Militia. So 3 cost, summon a skeleton token to each allied site that borders an enemy site. So this was also another card that adding to the pool I felt helped justify removing one of the novice necromancers. So it does a similar role. It's not exactly the same, but you're going to get 2, 3 skeletons. You're going to get 2, 3 bodies, similar to how you're getting bodies with the novice necromancer. You don't get the spellcaster effect like with the necromancer, but I think that's an all right trade-off for getting more skeletons that synergize with some of the other things that the deck is trying to do. So with those cuts and those additions, I got up to my 40 cards in the spell book. On the site side, nothing really notable to add in the sites. I just added some basic sites to bring up to 20. So we'll see what the pool, what the future packs that we open will add to the sites. Now, some other notable things, notable cards in the pool I wanted to point out. So I did open 2 hollow ones. These are going to be in our colors right now. We're still in Air and Fire in the Necromancer deck. These are disabled until a mortal or beast dies nearby. I didn't have a lot of mortals or beasts in the build. Now this would trigger off of our opponent as well. So these are hanging out in the sideboard right now. I'm going to get some more games in, see what we open up in our packs, and maybe we can build a hollow one triggering kind of side theme in our deck eventually. But those are hanging out. We also have Willing Tribute. I think works really well because it is immortal and you can sacrifice it at will. So you can set up a good situation with Willing Tribute and Hollow One. So those are hanging out in the sideboard. Like I mentioned, I stuck with the Air and Fire theme of the pre-constructed deck for Necromancer, but I do want to keep an eye out of the Earth and Water cards that we open. It might pull us over into another color or a different color pair. And Earth has some good stuff already in the pool. So we got Malakim, big card. I did play against this, and it is quite annoying. We got a Smite, Barrel White. So this is going to help us with our skeletons if we want to go a different color pair and still do skeletons. Barrel Whites in the pool, as well as Noisome, Twosome. We've got some skeleton synergies in Earth already. So that's sitting out there in the pool. One interesting site that I did open was the Ursat's Plots. So you can play an exceptional site from your collection here, banishing this site. So we don't have any notable exceptional sites in our collection yet, but just knowing that this is out there, if we do open an exceptional site, we might throw this in the deck or if we have a couple exceptional sites and we want to have like a toolbox situation, then we've got the ersatz plots sitting in the wings waiting for that. All right, so now the most fun part of the video, we're going to open our next 3 packs and see what we have to add to the pool, what we can use to build. Some things that I'm looking for, I mentioned already before, desecrate. If we open up our desecrated ground, then we can add that to our sites. I would love another witching hour. This card's just so good. Having another one in the deck would be awesome. Order the Pale Worm. Nearby sites and units lose ward. So in my games in the first month of the league, I played against Savior, and Savior's got a lot of ward. And Order the Pale Worm did a lot of work as far as removing those pesky wards. And then another site that I really like is a Cursed Desert for the same reason. So breaking nearby wards, this can be so powerful, especially if you get this site deeper into the opponent's side of the board. Really good for breaking all the wards that are out there in Gothic. So those are some of the cards that I'm looking for, but who knows what we'll open. Maybe we'll see something new or exciting that we want to pivot towards. All right, here we go. So we got a Barging Barghest, so 3/3, movement 1, void walk. I already like that. We're in fire. We could use a really powerful unit like this, so I could see that making its way in. Monster Morphosis. Yeah. Disable target nearby minion until your next turn. At the start of that turn, you may transform into a monster from your hand. Okay, so we're not in water right now, but keep that off to the side. Nomo Monitor, Submerged Voidwalk, 3/3, another water card. Doomsday Cult, all right, 5/3. Players play the top card of their spellbook revealed and may cast evil from the top of their spellbook here. All right, so this is good if we are playing against non-evil decks, but kind of like the same thing I said about panpipes, it's a symmetric effect, so our opponent might be able to get more advantage out of it than us. So finding a way to break that symmetry is a way that we could use to leverage Doomsday Cult a little bit better. Sewer Rats, we got a water card. Plague Rat, okay, 1/1 lethal. I do love lethal. This is an air. I could see this finding its way into our deck. It's also a beast, so it does get us a little bit closer to that Hollow One style deck that we talked about a little bit earlier. Eltham Townsfolk, just your townsfolk in Earth. Undesirables, big Earth unit burrowing and allies can't enter. Gift of the Wolf, give an allied minion +2 power. Okay, so we got another Earth card. Set that off into the pool. Ooh, an Open Mausoleum. So this is great. So Open Mausoleum, there's 2 of these, I believe, in the preconstructed deck. So having another one to get more skeletons would be great. I could definitely see this going into the deck. Lash, so in fire, deal damage to target nearby minion and untap it. We do actually have one of these in the pool already, so we've got access to another one. Makeshift Barricade. If one or more allies here would take damage, prevent it. If the damage was 3 or more, the barricade breaks. Okay, so that's a colorless card. We got Vast Desert, deal 1 damage to each minion atop nearby site. So this is also great against ward, small creatures like opposing skeletons. So Vast Desert, nice to have another desert. Forsaken, 2 cost, 3 power, void walk, must be cast in outer column. I have played this and played against this, and it does some interesting things. Not super powerful, but it can get in there and trying to change the landscape of battle. So I do like that. It's in air. And Ravenous Werewolf, 5 cost, 3 charge, movement 1. I also believe that there's one of these in Precon. I might be thinking of a different sealed deck that I did. But either way, Ravenous Werewolf, really good. That charge and movement +1 means that it can just come out of nowhere and really change the tide for you. So I do like Ravenous Werewolf. Okay, that's our first pack. Let's open up pack 2. Really happy with that Mausoleum. The Ravenous Werewolf is great. The Barging Barghest is really good. So I do like those options for us. All right, let's see what we got in pack 2. Zeppelin of Zealots, 5 cost 4. We got Mortals in the air, so ward and airborne while warded. So it is in our colors of fire and air. It's not quite doing what we're doing as far as skeletons, sacrifice effects, evil things, but it is a powerful card nonetheless. All right, Forsaken Crypt. It's an air site. Genesis, you may cast a ghoul from your collection to this site. Okay, I do like this. We do have some ghouls in our collection, and this is one way that we can use to leverage them. So not sure if or how we'll use this or if it'll make it into the deck, but I like seeing sites that are usable for us. Death Knight, so we got another Earth card here. Other nearby undead allies have +1 power. Okay, so this is a great signpost for something that we might switch over one of our colors into Earth, or maybe even splash for Earth. It is 2 threshold, but we're starting to see support for undead and skeletons in Earth in our power, so this is a really notable card to add to our pool. Evil Twin, 4 cost, enters the realm as an evil copy of an enemy minion and strikes first if they fight. Wow, I have not seen this card before, and that is an awesome, very flavorful effect. I love that. That's so cool. Evil Twin. It's in water, unfortunately. We don't have a lot of water cards in our pool, but man, that's such a fun effect. I love that Evil Twin. Okay, Sea Witch, another water card, 2 cost 2. Spellcaster Submerge, great. Granary Rats, 1/1. Sight doesn't provide threshold. I'm not sure how impactful that is in our sealed league, but it is a small cost beast, so we are looking at that Hollow 1 synergy, always keeping that in the back of our minds. Weathered Trunks, 4 cost 4 with water, 1-shot wizard. I do like the 1-shot wizard, kind of like I mentioned for Ghostfire. So it shoots a projectile that deals 1 damage on Genesis. So this can be a great way to play a unit and break ward at the same time with the same play. So I do like 1-shot wizard. Leadworks. Okay, it's a fire site. Genesis, until your next turn, sites are silenced while nearby. Okay, that's great. I think I like this as an early play. It can help break some of those Genesis plays early on where people are getting skeletons or wards. Yeah, interesting. I'll keep that in the back. I don't know if it'll make the deck, but it's an interesting effect. Holy Warrior, 2 cost 2 ward and earth. Okay, I do like that in earth. Den of Evil. We have one of these in the preconstructed deck already. The next evil cast of this site costs 1 less, ignoring threshold. So having a second Den of Evil might be what our deck's looking for if we're going to go hard on evil, especially if we've got some difficult threshold things to meet. So Den of Evil is nice that it already matches our current build. 1/1 Cemetery Rats, Burrowing. Discard the top 2 spells. On Genesis, okay, I like the rats so far. Carrion Beetles, 1/1 Burrowing, banish 3 cards from 1 cemetery. If we're in Earth, this can be great to combat opponents' graveyard synergies that they might have. And then Gift of the Serpent, 2 cost, give an allied minion lethal this turn, draw a spell. Okay, so it replaces itself and gives something lethal. This could be a good addition to our deck, giving a skeleton token lethal, especially in the late game, where it gets a little outclassed by some other things, could be a nice way to trade our skeleton token for something big of our opponents. And I really love that the Gift of the Serpent replaces itself, so you don't feel like you're getting at a card disadvantage. So I could see Gift of the Serpent making its way in. And we got Freeze in water, disable target nearby minion. Okay, I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. It's nothing that we were looking for as far as before we started opening packs, but there are some things that we can add. Okay, we got Stygian Archers. Ooh, I like Stygian Archers. We do have one of these in the pre-constructed deck already, so this helps us get towards more consistency. Really good card in Stygian Archers. Gnarled Wendigo, a big water unit. I've played against that. Rowdy Boys, 3/3 untaps after striking undead. So not necessarily helping us on our Earth Undead possibility, but still a good card to put in your deck if you're in Earth, because you're most likely going to be playing against Undead in Gothic. Stagecoach. So we got an air card here. 3 cost 2. Charge may carry any number of minions. Interesting. Okay, so it's decently costed, a little over costed for its power, but the idea here is it's going to carry a lot of skeletons maybe into battle for us, at least in our current build. It is immortal too. All right, Broomstick Witch, 2 cost 2, airborne spellcaster. I do like this. There's not a lot of cards in our deck right now that care about spellcaster. So just having a 2 cost 2 airborne is nice. Another Noisome Twosome, we talked about that before. Another Willing Tribute, so maybe we're getting closer to using those hollow ones. We've got a Crawler, 3 cost 3 projectiles fly over crawler. It's an undead. I like this card. That's good. Landmass, draw a site, play a land. Great. Sarava Townsfolk, Search Party. Really, it would be really interesting to see if somebody can put together a Search Party deck in our Escalation League. I'm sure somebody's going to try it. I like the idea of that. Another Novice Necromancer if we want to pivot back into the Novice Necromancer. Flaming Skull, 2 cost Airborne Fire Spellcaster. Trial by Fire, just a nice burn spell. A Pit and a Pith Imp. All right, so we've got some good toolbox things. We've got some new items in the pool. I really liked what we've opened up so far. I think it gives us some good options. We got the Stagecoach, Gift of the Serpent. What are some other notable things that we added? Ravenous Werewolf, Vast Desert, Open Mausoleum. So I'm pulling out a lot of sites because I think that's going to help. That's going to be another good step up for our deck is rounding out our sites, our atlas. So yeah, we got Barghest, Mausoleum, Desert, Ravenous Werewolf, Gift of the Serpent, Stagecoach. Some good options here. So I'm going to take these off camera, build my next deck, go play some new games in the next month of our Escalation League, and I will report back and let you know how I did. And you'll see me again in a few weeks, and we'll open up some more packs and add to our build. That's it for our first episode of the Escalation League recap. Let me know how you're liking Gothic so far. Are you participating in any fun limited events over the course of Gothic? Let me know. I love to hear how people are playing this great game, and I'll catch you on the next one.